Welcome to the Simpler Business Podcast, where we talk about ways to do what you love and serve your people in a way that brings you income and freedom. I'm your host, Marissa Roberts. Join me as I chat with my favorite entrepreneurs about how they simplify their biz so that you can simplify yours. Changing your outer world begins with rewiring your inner world, and sometimes that means leaning into discomfort in order to set yourself free. As business owners, entrepreneurs, mothers, people, we've all experienced what it's like to have a goal or a vision for your business or your life and feel like you're working at it 24/7, but not really getting anywhere. You want to make a positive change, you ramp yourself up to do it, and then your brain kicks in and thoughts like, what if I can't? Who am I to even try? They take over and they talk you out of your great idea before you even get started. It's time to stop fighting yourself and get out of your own way so that you can have the things you want. My guest today, Laura Ora, has done a tremendous amount of work with her own healing and with going after what she truly wants. Laura is a mindset coach, a speaker, and host of the Gutsy podcast. She teaches people how to quit settling and start radiating by shifting their mind junk. Laura helps women stop overthinking and overcomplicating their next move, allowing them to take steps towards getting what they truly want. And she specializes in things like why your brain gives you ideas and then talks you out of them, what your resistance and tendencies tend to tell you about your desires, how to recognize and interrupt the mental cycle that holds you back, the difference between temporary and perpetual discomfort, and how to move forward with your desires using her power back process. As an all-around visionary, she is the first to push you out of your comfort zone and the last to hug you as you head to the next level and start embracing a life that you feel alive in. And I'm so excited to chat with her today. Welcome, Laura.
Hey, thank you for having me.
I'm so excited you're here because I think so many people can relate to that feeling of, oh, I had this idea, I'm a little bit excited about it, and then those thoughts start to creep in. Oh, is that, has somebody done it before? Am I not as good as they are? Have I got enough experience? Are people going to think it's silly? Like that little chatter that goes on in your brain. We don't talk about it a lot out loud especially with entrepreneurial friends, right? But I really think that everybody struggles with that at some point. And the more we discuss it, the more we realize, that's just words, right? I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, everybody is experiencing it. Just not
Yeah.
everybody has a place or people or situations where they can talk about it, right? Because the first thing that we want to go to is like, oh, I don't want to say this out loud because I don't want to seem incompetent, or like I don't know what I'm doing, or like I'm not committed, or like there's something wrong with me, right? We immediately go into, if I say this out loud, that means vulnerability, and vulnerability means like something's going wrong, right? Someone's going to see me in a different light, or I'm not going to be taken seriously, or seen as a professional anymore. But the realization is, listen, I started interviewing entrepreneurs 10 years ago because I was fascinated with the stuff that was happening in my own head. And I thought, if I'm thinking and feeling this way, I'm certain there's got to be at least a few other people. Turns out it's basically everybody. Spoiler alert. But it was interesting. You know, I had a business at the time. I built a branding agency for 16 years. And I found myself so incredibly drawn to the side conversations that I was having with entrepreneurs about the things that we're talking about here today, which is the worry and the thoughts and the can I and what ifs, and also the big ideas too, right? It's not always about the negative stuff, but sometimes it's about the crazy shit where people are like, okay, there she goes again, right? Like there's just so many things that happen in any mind, but specifically in the entrepreneurial mind. I mean, it's the Wild West up there sometimes. Like we can be our best friend and greatest advocate in one moment and be our biggest enemy and mean girl the next second.
Yeah.
And when I started interviewing these entrepreneurs, I realized like there's so many similarities, and we're all thinking and experiencing something similar. It may not be the exact situation, but the feeling is there. And when we talk about it, we neutralize it. We don't feel alone anymore. We know that there are other people that feel like this too. And most importantly, that there are ways to overcome it. So it's been an interesting journey to just see and feel behind the curtains of everybody's minds, and to see that we really are way more alike than we all give ourselves credit to be.
It's so true because I think, yeah, you're right. I can think of so many examples where I've had a conversation with friends where they've kind of almost flippantly mentioned something years ago about them feeling like imposter syndrome, or like they were a beginner at something and totally had to wing it, or like they weren't sure about the next step. That now, a few years later, I would look at them and be like, that was your most successful thing. Imagine if you didn't do it. And, I think there's some chat about it later when people are going well at something, but no one wants to raise it when they're stuck in it. And I think that vulnerability, we see it as a weakness sometimes, but that vulnerability is actually what brings people together and is a great way to kind of get more support from your network or your friendships and stuff like that. That sort of shared experience is such a powerful thing. And I think it's important that we stop seeing, you know, those things to ourselves like, oh, if I show any weakness, I'm not going to look successful, so no one's going to work with me. When actually, a lot of the time, I think that's what makes people so relatable to understand, have they struggled with something similar? And I think that's where connection really comes from.
Oh, and it's what people are craving now, right? There's so much fakeness, facade, Instagram worthy, Pinterest worthy kind of stuff, and people just don't resonate with that as much as they used to. they
Yeah.
want to they want to connect with people that they feel like they really actually know, right? Like people that they can relate to, people that share similar values in life, that are on a similar mission, someone that they're aspiring to be, right? Maybe it's a role model or somebody that's just a few steps ahead of them. They don't want to see how everything was perfect every step of the way.
Yeah.
I tell you, some of my most popular content is when I'm just being insanely vulnerable about what's happening in the moment, because people are like, oh my gosh, like you can be doing your thing and love that and still have challenging moments, right? Like last week, I just put up a post about like growth is messy, right? I sold my first business to pursue my full-time career as a speaker and as a coach. And I'm, even though I'm not of new to business, I'm new to this focus. And it's been messy, right? Like I'm not starting from zero, because I have 17 years now behind my back, but the focus and the intention and my day to day is very different. And so I
Yeah.
shared online, I'm like, I've been applying to hundreds of different events and I'm getting little to no response. And the plumbing, we had a leak. So I've got a 5-foot hole in our ceiling. So I'm sitting on the couch and I'm applying for speaking gigs, and there's a plumber in the house, and there's a kid outside screaming, right? Like it's just messy. And
Yeah.
when we can share those, like there was such a great response from that. Like, thank you for sharing this, because I see that what I'm going through is normal and other people are having the same thing. Because what we tend to do is we get in a kind of silo, right? We get very
Yeah.
tunnel vision and we're like, oh my gosh, there's something wrong with me, everything's falling apart, I'm doing something wrong. When you see a post like that, it's like, oh, everybody experiences their own version of this.
Yeah, I feel better knowing not and I feel better that someone else is struggling, but I feel better knowing that I'm not alone
Exactly.
in the struggle. Yeah.
Exactly. And sometimes it's just enough of a oomph to inspire you to keep going, right?
Mhm.
Because again, when you're in that tunnel vision and it feels like everything's kind of clouding in and around you, uh, you lose motivation.
Yeah.
You lose sight of why you're doing this in the first place. We're
Yeah, you
just
start to
like,
think, what's the point? Yeah.
exactly, you get really micro focused on the moment, and sometimes seeing stuff like that, it's like, oh, it's like a breath of fresh air, and you can like literally open back up, and you're like, okay, I know why I'm doing this. This gave me a little extra push to keep going. And vulnerability is a superpower.
Yeah. So what inspired you to do this sort of work? Did you have like a particular event? Like I'd love to know more about your backstory and how did you kind of get out of your own way in regards to stuff? Like, because I imagine that this business that you're doing now and the coaching that you're doing now started with something that happened with you. Is that right?
Oh, absolutely. It's been, I think, a lifelong journey, honestly, getting to this point, right? So, like I mentioned, I ran a branding agency for 16 and a half years. I I realize in hindsight that I actually built that business off of the backbone of my insecurities. You
Oh,
know, when you're a business owner, your internal personal stuff
yeah.
does not go away. It gets amplified. And so if you've got tendencies, if you've got unresolved challenges, if you have trauma that you've not dealt with yet, if you've not done any type of personal development work or therapy, it's coming out. It's coming out in business because, I was a perpetual people pleaser based off of a background with abandonment as a child. I inherited just a really negative mindset around finances, and that showed up in my business, right? And then just feeling like I always had to prove my worth. So I overworked myself. And that combination, listen, don't get me wrong, we had wonderful success over 16 years and a lot of really incredible moments. But man, did it hurt most of the way.
Yeah.
And
Exhausting. Yeah.
absolutely exhausting. So, when I was building that business, I was definitely working on myself, but it wasn't until COVID happened that shook everything, and it forced me to face the things that I had not yet dealt with. And like I mentioned, I had been interviewing at this point. My career started to overlap. So 10 years ago, so mid design agency ownership, I started interviewing entrepreneurs on something called the Green Couch Project. And I just felt this like aliveness in me, right? Like drawing this information out of people and interviewing and having vulnerable conversations and creating a safe space where people could say what they needed to say and felt safe to cry and share the things that most of their family don't even know about, right? Because they're not people that they feel like they can go to with these specific problems. In entrepreneurship, it's just you got to go to people that really understand the
I
entrepreneurial
get it.
life.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure. So as time was going on, this kind of scale of my career where I thought I would do branding until the day that I died, that scale started to tip the other direction,
Mm.
and speaking and teaching and holding workshops and like being in front of people and extracting these thoughts and feelings out of people and then helping them have a clear plan on how to move forward just exploded. And all the while, I had been doing my own work, doing my own therapy, doing my own personal development, understanding the mind, studying the body and mind connection, right? Like just digging in.
Yeah.
And I noticed that this is what made me feel like I could take on the world, right? I was
Yeah.
so excited about this. So I just sold that business just 8 months ago. And it's been thrilling, right? It's a hard decision to let go of something that you've spent, nearly 2 decades building, but it was the right thing to do. And it's allowed me to have so much more time and space and capacity to be able to do the work that I really love.
Yeah. And so it's work that lights you up, but also helps so many other people at the same time. I really think that when you know something's the right move, right?
Oh yeah,
Even sometimes it's a bit of a what if for the future, but I think when you've found your thing and everything just I don't know. It's like everything suddenly has a bit of a glow or, flows more easily. It might not be easy 100% of the time, but you kind of dig in because you're excited to make it work. And it's interesting to solve the puzzles that come with the new business. I think when you found the right thing and even that in itself would be very inspiring for the people that you're working with, because I bet there's a lot of other people out there who have had, a business that they've run for a number of years that was going well, but didn't quite hit the spot. And to see somebody else have the experience that you had, that actually no, you're not tied to something forever. As much as our businesses can become part of our identity, to see somebody be able to go, well, actually no, I found something else that I even found more intuitive and more like it was a good fit. I think that's a really good example for people to have anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not void of challenges, right? Because I one of the biggest spots that I coach people in is that space between want and have,
Yeah.
because it's that space in between where that mind junk comes into play. And so for me, what that looked and sounded like was, you've been doing this for 20 years. Why would you give up something that you've put so much time and effort into? What are people going to think? This is what your reputation is in. This is what your college degrees are in. Like, where are your new clients going to come from? You have a steady income. Why are you going to change this? I mean, I could write a novel on how many
Yeah.
things I said to myself, right? But at the end of the day, when I thought about going, continuing on that path, I just started to feel this internal resistance where it was like, no, Laura, no. We I have done everything that I wanted to in this portion of my career, and it's time for the next thing, and I've got to be willing to release all of those fears and all of those expectations and all of those wonders and just lean into curiosity, right?
Yeah.
I think that one of the most underrated tools that we have is curiosity, because it diffuses fear very quickly, and
Hmm.
it paints a picture for what is possible. And when you start leaning into that and feeling into that, right? Like when I started getting curious about what it might be like to be a full-time speaker, oh my gosh, like I got giddy, right? Like I felt so good. And it's like, okay, I cannot ignore how I physically and mentally feel when I stand at the crossroads of what I think that I should keep doing and what I actually really want to do. And
Yeah.
it's that sliver in between where we have the decision to make a gutsy move.
I love that. And it takes you out of that every day. I'm stuck in everything. When you make a decision like that, it's so nice to be able to have that step back and kind of view it as a bigger picture. So I think that's going to be helpful for everybody listening today. And I guess I really want to ask you the $1 million question, right? For me, that is okay. Because I do believe we can have whatever we want, right? I think that no matter what happens, there's a way to get you there. But I think where a lot of people struggle is how do they actually figure out what they truly, truly want? Because we're conditioned by so many external factors in our lives, and we're so busy all the time with serving everybody else. How do you really get into, okay, here's what it is that I truly, truly want myself?
I love this question because it's so multifaceted. So a couple of things to play around with is, first, an exercise that you can do is, if I asked you to take all of your current roles and responsibilities and set them to the side. So your spouse's thoughts and feelings, what your kiddos need, what your aging parents need, what your job or clients need, like everything that everyone pulls from you. And I'm not saying that in a negative way, just right. It's a give and a take in life.
Yeah.
Everywhere where you have a sense of responsibility, just for a few moments, I want you to just take everybody and lovingly set them to the side for a second. If you didn't have to worry about how it would affect any of them or what you currently do, or even figure out how to do the thing,
Mhm.
what would you do?
Ooh.
And usually the very first thing that pops up in your mind is exactly what you need to know.
Yeah, that is cool. That took the
And
pressure off straight away, too.
yes, because notice, right, that the pressure is not really coming from you,
Hmm.
it's coming from the expectation.
Yeah.
And so when you give yourself a second to just lovingly sit everybody to the side for a moment and ask yourself what you would do, that very first thing that comes to you is exactly what you need to know in that moment. And
Wow.
then your mind naturally is going to be like, well, how do I do this? And what are they going to think of that? And I don't have the time to do it. Okay. All right, friend. We don't have to like figure out the world today. We don't have to, we're not flipping tables over and making all this happen next week. But
Hmm.
now you have a little bit more clarity on a direction.
Yeah.
Okay. And when you have clarity on a direction, you can start making choices, decisions, and actions that go closer towards that.
Okay.
So getting to that thing is small, messy steps towards it on a regular basis. It's not this whole like, blow it up and see what happens kind of situation. I mean, every once in a while,
Well done.
somebody will do that, and, that works sometimes. But for most of us, taking those small, messy actions towards it will help you to get to that actual thing. The second thing that you can do is, if you're still not clear on like the arrival, right? The thing, the ultimate goal, right? If that's not taking shape or form yet, don't get discouraged. People don't figure out their purpose in life like overnight. Okay.
Mhm.
I want you to focus on what kind of feeling you actually want. Okay.
Oh,
What kind of feeling am I going for? Is it white space and freedom and time? Like I
mhm.
want the ability to like kind of come and go as I please and be able to do things on a random Tuesday afternoon or take my kids to this or hang out with my girlfriends there or whatever the thing is for you, right? When you focus on the feeling, you don't have to know exactly what the thing is that gives you that.
Mm,
This is how you get to decide to make decisions that support that feeling. So if I, for instance, if I am craving more white space, I'm using this example because it's one of the things that I really wanted, a feeling that I really wanted to experience. When I think about, okay, I want to feel more free in my time.
mhm.
When you go to make decisions, hey, Laura, can you take back-to-back meetings on, all day Wednesday? Hmm, that doesn't really support what I really want, right? For me, I do better when I've got at least 15 or 20 minutes in between things. Gives me time to go stretch and get some sunshine and drink some water and blow my nose and just pee and do all human stuff, right? When I'm back to back to back, I'm putting so much pressure on myself. But if I know what I want is flexibility and freedom, then I can say I can't do back to back, but I can do this, or that. Right. So I'm making decisions that support what I want. And that's going to help you get clarity on like the actual thing that's molding and forming.
Yeah. Oh, I really like that because I feel like that's a doable step too. You know how sometimes when you make a big decision, you kind of get in that overwhelmed sort of freeze, and then you're like, oh, you're right. It's such a big thing. Or if you're unsure, you can feel like either I have to know exactly what I'm doing or I can't do anything at all. And that's such a black and white moment. I think going by feeling is such a nice thing because you can start with the tiniest steps possible. Like, how do I just want to feel? When you were giving that example, immediately I was like, yeah, I need to schedule like downtime into my calendar before the week starts, like a month
Yes.
ahead, so that people can't accidentally book it. And I'm a natural people pleaser. And so if somebody says to me, can you do this? My brain goes, of course I can. I can deliver anything. And I want to make that person happy. And I realized, especially over the last couple of years, as my businesses have kind of exploded growth wise, I'm very excited about that. But, as somebody who likes to work a couple of hours a day, I got into this habit of saying yes to everybody and then realizing, wait, I'm in meetings so many meetings all day now that I have to work into the evening to get the actual actions done from the meetings. And I was like, all back to burnout, which is ironic considering my whole business is teaching other people how not to do that. Right. But you're
Yes.
right, that people pleasing nature really got in. And I was like, oh, just stuck in this quicksand of saying yes to people because I technically could, or I would physically be able to do it, but it would be at the detriment of my own well-being. And that's me putting myself last instead of going, no, how do I want to feel? So yeah, that was a real big aha moment for me just then.
Excellent. That's great. People pleasing is way more common than we realize. And I think the key thing that I want you and everyone listening to know is there's a huge difference between people pleasing and helping people. There seems to be this unspoken thought that if you're not a people pleaser, then you hate helping people. And it's like, hold on a second. Helping people is consciously choosing to support others without expending yourself.
Mm,
People pleasing is expending yourself to make other people happy. And so
yeah.
if you're intentional about building in that time for yourself, blocking it in before the week even starts, right? Being conscious about what you really want, then you can support yourself and help people in the way that fits you the best without going like over the top all the time. Like most people aren't even expecting us to do that. We just
I
feel like we have
know.
to.
Yeah. And they're like, yeah, now, the times that I do actually say to people, yes, I can do that, but it won't be ready for a couple of weeks because I've got a lot going on. They go, yeah, that's fine.
That
Whereas,
and see that is consciously choosing to help others without expending yourself.
yeah.
Bravo. Because one of the things that you can do is say, I would really love to help. I would really love to help you with this. but my
Mhm.
schedule's pretty full for the next 2 weeks. Would it work if I do this in on such and such date? And they're either going to be like, yeah, absolutely. I had no expectation of you to do it any faster. And you're like, cool. Or they're going to be like, oh, no, I need this sooner.
Yeah. And then
So
they might look
I need,
elsewhere
I need to
instead.
ask somebody else. Cool.
Yeah.
That's fine. Like, I'm not saying no. But sometimes you have to say no, and that's okay too. Right. Like you have to be willing to say no or yes if, right?
Yeah.
Like it supports yourself, it honors yourself, and allows you to support people in the way that fits you best as well.
Yeah. So then when you help people shift their thoughts or shift their approach to how they're doing things, do you have a particular process that you follow or something that you recommend? Because I think we're naturally wired to do what we're doing now. So we're not always conscious of the behaviors that we're doing and the mindset that we have behind the behaviors. So
Mm-hmm.
how do you get people to move into that shift mode?
Yeah. So I've got a process that will help you disrupt that. I
Mhm.
think of myself as a disruptor in the best of ways.
Mhm.
And it's called the power back process. It's a process that I developed that I didn't know that I was developing until I was doing it. And then I was like, hold on a second, what's working here? Let me document this. If it's working for me, I can teach other people how to do the same thing. So it's very easy. I'm not saying it's simple, but it's easy to do. So you can do this standing at the grocery store line, driving in your car, sitting at your desk. You don't need to go anywhere. You don't need to buy anything. Okay. The key thing is you have to do it. Otherwise, it doesn't work. So the power back process is an acronym, aura, AURA. It's intended to help you get back into your own energy and to make conscious decisions, right? This is the disruptor that stops the overthinking, the worry, the what ifs, the mean girl talk, like all that stuff. This is intended to stop that. You can use this in the moment to shift your thoughts to something that you actually want instead. So I'll walk you through it if you're up for it.
Yeah.
Okay. So A is for awareness. You have to be aware of what you're thinking and feeling. Because
Yeah.
if you don't, nothing's changing. And awareness is nothing more than noticing,
Yeah.
noticing your thoughts, noticing if you're feeling something in your body. Oh, my thoughts are starting to race. I'm feeling tightness in my chest. Cool. We've noticed it. You've
Mhm.
already started to disrupt your pattern because you're stopping for a second to acknowledge yourself.
Yeah.
The next step is you, which is to unpack it. Now, unpacking it gives you the opportunity to get curious about what this is saying to you.
Okay.
Oh, I wonder what's happening right now. Did I see something? Am I writing something? Like, oh, is this tied to something that I've dealt with in the past? Right? You see how I'm just like curiously asking myself questions just to get to know this thing better. I like to look at this part of the process like talking to your inner child, right? If a child was having a big emotion, how would you ideally want to communicate with them?
Mm.
Softer, getting on their level, hearing them. This is what unpacking is all about. And when you do this, you immediately start to diffuse the bigness of what you were feeling.
Okay.
Once you have a little bit more of a grasp on it, right? Now you can go to R, which is to reframe it. So this is the place where now you're talking a little bit more to your higher self, the knowing, your soul, right? This is what's really true in this moment. What do I have the power to do instead? What what am I avoiding that I could actually take control back over, right? This is like getting regrounded in yourself. This is choosing to claim something different. And when you
Mhm.
do this, you're taking all of that power away from the overthinking and wherever you were headed, and we're spinning it back around towards that thing that you want instead. Then you can go to A, which is aligned action. So now
Mm.
I'm consciously choosing to take action towards the thing that I want and I believe instead of the thing that my mind was spiraling me away from. Okay. So this is how you catch your thoughts in the moment and shift them towards the thing that you want. I've done this hundreds, probably thousands of times. I've taught it thousands of times. And it is the disrupting tool that helps you to stop overthinking and start taking action towards the thing that you really want instead. And I
Yeah.
promise you, if you use it, like at first, it's going to feel kind of weird and you're going to be like, am I doing this right? Did I miss a step? Like, okay, let it be messy, right? But if you do this a handful of times, you're going to realize that you have way more control in the moment than what your brain is allowing you to think that you do.
Yeah. Yep. I think that's a really nice way to kind of stop that reactivity where you're just constantly going and going and going and giving and giving and giving and kind of losing yourself in the process, to be able to have that little moment of pause and go, no, hang on a minute. Let's just walk through these 4 steps and kind of really get a handle on what's actually going on here and how does that actually relate to my goal or how I'm feeling right now. Yeah, that's pretty powerful stuff. I love it.
Yeah. And I'll give you one other tip, because sometimes we don't catch it, right? Sometimes we're already in the moment. Sometimes we get super fucking triggered by something, right? Like
Yeah.
whatever, sometimes you're just in it, right? And so something that's really powerful to do if you're already in it, meaning your thoughts are racing, you're feeling out of control, you're starting to do all kinds of crazy stuff, right? Like the best thing that you can do is
Oh.
move something. And what I mean by that is get up, take a walk, stretch, dance, shake
Mhm.
it out, right? We're inviting somatic practices in here. Movement can also be talking, right? So earlier this week, I was just feeling really bottled up, right? It's period week, so my mind's going 100 miles an hour, faster than what it normally does. I got all kinds of stuff going on, right? Like I'm just feeling a lot of things, and I'm like, oh, what do I teach my students? What do I teach my students? I got to move. What do I feel like I need to move? I need to move my words.
Mhm.
Anger gets such a bad rap because it's like quote unquote a negative emotion, but it's really just your body's way of saying I need to express something.
Yeah.
So I yelled out loud what I needed to yell and to say, and I let that energy move out of me. And wouldn't you know, in like 20 minutes I felt so much better. So
Yeah.
if you're in the heat of your brain, move something. I
Yeah.
promise you, you will feel a million times better.
Yeah. And that moment can feel so big, right? And then you look back on it later and go, well, hang on a minute. It's actually not the big deal I thought it was. I just had to approach it from a different perspective at the time. Getting out of our own heads, I think, is really the big battle, isn't it? Like that sort of feeling of, I don't know, whenever it's just so, it seems, it's mind blowing to me that we can all have like an amazing idea and you think if it doesn't work out, it's going to be because the world doesn't want you to do it or other people are putting you down. But actually, it's ourselves. Like we hold ourselves back before it even, before the horse leaves the gate or whatever the saying is, and just kind of go straight from, I would really, really love to do this to, oh my God, here's 10 reasons I'm not going to be able to do it. And I feel like, yeah, there's so much tied up in it. To be able to have that sort of clarity and go, all right, so when I'm feeling like this, I can actually take this action. Or when I'm feeling like this, I can just pause and remind myself that that's just mental chatter happening. It's not necessarily true. There's so much power in that. Why do you think people do that? Why do you think we talk ourselves out of those good ideas? Where does that come from?
Everything and everyone. It comes from, listen, we're not born believing that we're not capable. I mean, when
Yeah.
if you watch a toddler, they are invincible.
Yeah, they're like, I'm awesome.
They don't give two shits, right? Like they're just doing their thing because they believe that they can, because they don't have anything else to tell them that they cannot. They have no other experience. And so
Yeah.
if you think about, as time goes on, we see what other people model and
Yeah.
what they do and what they don't do, and where people hold back, and what the world tells us that we should and shouldn't do, and societal expectations, and someone else's opinion. And it's like walking through life and just picking up people's like bags of sand and just carrying it through us in
Yeah.
our life. And so we get to this point where it's like, I don't really know, because now it's all of these external sources that have influenced us.
Hmm.
And a lot of the work is getting back to who you were before the world told you what you should be.
Yeah.
That's your center of power, right? Like that's your truth. That's who you are. And that involves, while as you're walking, now we're sitting down somebody's bag of sand. We're tossing that one over there. Maybe this one I'm going to drop kick, right? Like that one really needs to go, right? And it's
Yeah.
like releasing yourself of all of these things. And it's not to say that you're never going to not believe in yourself, because It's just human nature to keep us safe, right?
Yeah.
Your brain wants to keep you safe, and what it deems safe is what it knows. And so if
Yeah.
it's only known chaos your whole life, being still is not going to feel safe, right? If
Yeah.
you stayed quiet your whole life, speaking up is not going to feel safe. If you've been in a job your whole life, starting a business does not feel safe, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean that it's wrong. It just means that it's new to you. And we've got to work through those motions and emotions and the jitters that come along with taking a risk and doing something new.
Yeah. So don't let it hold you back. Just recognize that people feel these feelings. They're perfectly normal. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong. It's just your brain going, hang on a minute, we just need to tread carefully and make sure you're going to be okay while you're doing it. And we've got to interpret that as something that is nurturing us and looking after us, but not necessarily correct information. So, yeah, I love
Yes.
that. Oh, Laura, I think I've had like 5 aha moments alone in this. Like, I think we've been chatting for like
Excellent.
half an hour. That's been amazing. And and like honestly, I've been working online or doing my own thing business wise since I think 2012 now. And if I look back, there's not a lot of times where I gave myself permission to kind of stop and consider how am I really feeling about this decision? What's holding me back from the next step? That sort of stuff just kind of creeps in, and it's almost like you compartmentalize it and kind of push it to the side and go, yeah, I know. I'm just going to pause and then I'll focus on what everybody else wants me to do. And I think to myself, I can think of like so many little occasions where that's happened, where the trajectory of my life pathway could have gone down a completely different way. And I love my life and I love what I do, but there are things where I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if I could also do that? And wouldn't it be cool if I could have found a way to make that work? And then me going, well, you can't have it all. There's not enough hours in the day. But actually now I'm thinking, well, hang on, time doesn't have to be restrictive anymore. I just really need to focus on what are the things I want to use my time for the most, and what are the things that I think I'm going to look back on and go, wow, I'm really glad I did that, as opposed to, wow, I'm really glad I was able to help everybody with the thing they wanted me to do. Does that sound terrible? Even now, I'm
No,
like,
if
oh,
you
that
think
sounds
about it,
selfish.
you're going to help everybody get everything that they want while you're not getting anything that you want.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's what
that's
it boils
crazy.
down to, you know?
Yeah.
And
Imagine if my kids
remember,
did that. I'd be like, no, that's great. Don't.
oh yeah, you would be like, absolutely no, absolutely not. You need to prioritize yourself, right? And remember too, like even those subtle sayings where there's not enough time in the day,
Mm-hmm.
if that is playing on repeat, whether you're saying it out loud or you're thinking it internally, that's what you're training your brain to believe is safe.
Yep.
And so it only knows what you teach it.
Yeah,
And
true.
so when you go against this, you're going to feel uncomfortable. But I love how you're like lighting up and getting a little bit excited and inquisitive about like, hold on a second. I think I have more options than
Yeah.
thought that I was allowed to have. And that's the turning point. Like that's the aha moments that I love to watch people have, because it's
Mhm.
like, hold on a second. I actually have a lot more ability and power to change things in a way that benefit me. I don't have to keep doing things the way that I've always done them.
Yeah. I love that. I feel like this is just the beginning for me. And for people who are listening today too, I think they're going to really, it's going to be a little moment for them to be able to do that sort of mental assessment as well. And I know they're going to want more. So can we talk a little bit about your resource? You have a private podcast series on getting
I
out of your head. I'd love to know
I
more about that.
I do. So if you enjoyed or are more interested in that process that I just taught you, the Power Back process, if you go to lauraora.com/foundations, I will send you 5 days of free audio and I'll walk you through each part of that process more in depth. There's a
Mhm.
handy dandy worksheet that comes with it so you can journal along through it to really get to know it more, and how it works for you. I'm very adamant about teaching framework that you can adapt into your own life, not a copy and paste of what I do in my own life.
Mm.
So this is a great way for you to like dig into this more and explore this more for yourself and how it's going to work for you. And I'm telling you, it's a game changer. If you use it and you use it frequently, you will change your life.
Oh, frequently. That's a good point too. It's not just a one and done,
Oh
right?
no, my friend, it's not a I'm not a magic fairy over here. I'm not, waving a wand and ta-da, I've solved all your life's problems. Frequently. Yes, this is a tool, much like working out is a tool to strengthen your body. This is a tool to strengthen your mind.
Yeah, I love that. All right, I'm going to put a link in the show notes for anybody who wants to go down that journey. I think that's going to be a really good one because, your week is really, really busy doing everything for everybody else. And just to have that set time, that kind of, okay, I'm going to take 5 days and I'm going to focus on this for a little bit of time every day. That's a really nice way to break that down and make that manageable no matter what someone's got going on in their life. So I really, really love that. And I know people are going to have, they're probably going to want to like connect with you, ask you questions. So what's the best way for people to reach you? Is it website, social media, favorite platform?
Yeah, lauraora.com is the hub for all things me. It has all of my social links. It has the Gutsy podcast link. It's got all the things that you need. But I will tell you that I play the most on Facebook and TikTok, and
Mm-hmm.
my handle is at that Laura Ora. So I'm the one answering my DMs. I love having dialogue. If you heard me on this podcast and something resonated with you, please DM me. I would love to have a dialogue with you.
Lovely. All right, I'll put links to all of those in the show notes too. Thank you so much for being here. This has been such an enlightening chat. And for me, it's first thing in the morning. So I feel like I now have this little boost for the day ahead. And I'm very excited about where my mind's going to take me for the next few hours. So that's going to be really cool. So thank you so much for being here, Laura.
Absolutely. Thanks for holding the space for us.
Oh, it's been amazing. I hope everybody listening out there has loved our conversation as much as I've loved having it. If you want to take a step further and dive into Laura's process, click the link in the show notes. You can access that straight away. And I will see you all in the next episode. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Simpler Business Podcast. If you did, please subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts. There's a link in the show notes to make it nice and easy for you, just the way we like it. If you're ready to simplify and scale your business, you can get started with my free audio class at marissaroberts.com. See you next time.